Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will be going over the history and geography of Borgu in Benin. At least I think that's how you pronounce it. This department is named after a kingdom called the Borgu, but it's a French-speaking country, so they would pronounce it Borgu. At least, maybe they say Borgu. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll go back and forth between the two, because I'm not quite sure which one it is, to be honest. It's very hard to find pronunciations for places like this. If anyone knows, let me know which one is the most correct. I'm going to say Borgu, because we're going to talk a lot about the kingdom of Borgu. But before we get into that, I have to show you the geography here. It's a very pretty landscape. Unfortunately, we're not going to look at it on Google Earth, but there are some areas that are pretty forested. You can see it's the Borgu or Borgu forest region over here, heading into Nigeria, which the department borders. Very important to its history. Nigeria over here. Also, if you want more Benin goodness, you can see I've done a bunch of other departments around. I'll link my playlist up in the corner there for you to see more about the history of Benin. It's a very fascinating country. The capital is Borgou right here, but our history is actually going to start in this town right here called Niki. Also, shout out to the person who commented that they play Infinity Nikki while they listen to my videos. I hope hearing that snapped you out of your gameplay, but not too much. Anyway, Nikki is where we're going to start our story. Because, like I said, this department is named after the kingdom of Borgu, which is a Bariba culture kingdom, I suppose. A Bariba kingdom that was mainly in like this area over here. What's now Nigeria and Benin. The elite, like the bourgeoisie, I guess, in the kingdom was called the Wasangari. And a Wasangari prince founded this town and was the center of his kingdom, the Borgu Kingdom. At one point, they warred with the Songhai Empire up there in what's now Mali. And they actually beat the Songhai, which is very impressive because the Songhai, at its height, was probably, at that time, the most powerful empire in Africa, with maybe like Ethiopia over there in close contention. Pretty impressive. They had an ally with the Oyo. You can see here's Oyo State down here in Nigeria, a Yoruba kingdom. And I believe they're the capitals of their area were over here. These sound familiar in the history that I read. But we'll talk about that another day. They founded Borgu over here in the 16th century to be a trading post. They traded with many of the other kingdoms in the area here in West Africa, all throughout. Even the Ashanti down there, which we talked a bit about last week, talking about Ghana. And many throughout like Nigeria today. Many of the kingdoms. In the 1820s, the Fulani, who are a Muslim peoples, invaded Oyo in a jihad and took over. And of course, the Borgu were upset by that because that was one of their closest allies. So when the Fulani were setting their sights on Niki in 1837, they fought back against the Fulani and actually won. It's very impressive. Because Fulani jihads, they didn't play around. They were out to invade and convert. And they beat the Fulani. But it came at a price. The kingdom was never as strong as it once was after that victory. Kind of a bittersweet victory. and in doing so, made this area appealing to some colonial powers who thought that they could take over while the kingdom was weak. In 1894, two countries, Great Britain and France, held the race for Nikki. Not a real race, but it was sending diplomats in to try to write treaties and figure out how they could claim these territories. And they essentially split the kingdom in two, with the French getting this side, making it part of French Dahomey. So they also warred with the Dahomey, who were down here. Which is, Dahomey were a very warlike culture at their height. So it's very impressive. They're very good soldiers in this kingdom. The French Dahomey became over here. And then, of course, we had Nigeria over here, which was British. So yeah, splitting the kingdom literally in half. Created the two countries that we have today. Other little facts about this department. Borgu was the birthplace of Benin's first president, Hubert Maga. He was not a great guy, so it's not like, oh, it was so cool, the first president of Benin was born here, that's awesome. He was not that awesome. There were far worse politicians in West Africa at the time of independence here, but he was not, he would not get a passing grade, let's say that for YouTube safety and relaxation purposes. He was ousted, it's fine. Today though, even though it's, up here in northern Benin, it's not nearly as bustling as down here in Cotonou and Porto Novo, Ouida, so forth along the coast, in the Bight of Benin, the Gulf of Guinea. But I did read about some conflict happening in the peoples up here, mainly between the farmers and the pastoralists, as they called them. So I assume like the herders, right? Grazing their cattle versus the people who are planting crops. And that it's gotten like very seriously violent. And that's really unfortunate. I'm not quite sure how you'd put a stop to that. I don't think that's like very high on Benin's priority list politically, right? So that's very sad. We hope that it doesn't escalate into, like militant groups and that it becomes a civil war or anything like that. But I don't think it's going to be like that. Thankfully, I can hope. So that is the history of Borgu department. There are lots of other little history bits about the Borgu Kingdom. I'd recommend you look it up if you want the whole story. About lots of stories about princes and conquerings, things like that. This is just in a nutshell. But it's very interesting history. That being said, since we don't have a Google Earth segment, we're going to hear from Topple the ASMR elephant. Because there are elephants in Benin. I'm not quite sure if there's elephants in this department, but in the parks up here, in Pinjari, of course, there's elephants. It's the W, right? Yeah, W National Park. There are elephants up there. So I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of wandered down and checked out this department. Nevertheless, we're going to make some great sounds with Topple's ears. He's going to rub the mic with his feet. You gotta let me know his little tag here, which you can see. I think my mom wrote that initial when I was little to know that it's mine. It's really loud on the microphone, so let me know if it's too loud, if it bothers you. I think it sounds kind of nice. As you can see, this is Topple. Topple's origin story is that he was oh my gosh, can you even see? A McDonald's toy from 1994. This is what we used to get in our Happy Meals, just fun little things like this. But yeah, he's gonna rub the mic, he's gonna brush his tail, I'm gonna give him some scratches, and he's gonna rub his trunk on the mic too. All kinds of noises he can make. So let me turn it over to top. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy this style of content, please consider subscribing. Next time we're going to go to Google Earth, even though there's not a lot of pictures to show you, because we're going to Chad, and we're going to what I consider, in my opinion, the most beautiful place in the entire Sahara Desert. We're going to the Tibesti Mountains. So there's not a lot of photos there, but I just want to show you the landscape. It's so stunning. You gotta check it out. Be sure to subscribe so you won't miss out. Please don't forget to give this video a like and leave me comments down below. Videos about Africa, in particular for some reason West Africa, don't do very well on my channel. So liking and commenting really helps to boost it in the algorithm. I would very much appreciate if you could just do that little favor for me. I hope you found this video to be relaxing and educational, and I hope that you have a good